What's up, Hoop Reporters? It's your boy Manny here. Welcome to another edition of the Hoop Report, the NAIA Women's Basketball Podcast, episode 22. I think. We just got back from the trip, so the number's a little foggy right now in the head, but I'm pretty sure it's episode 22. Crazy thing that we've gotten already to 22 episodes on the season, and we're only in week two. Halfway through, just about halfway through week two when you guys are watching this on Monday morning. Very excited to get into this episode. We've got a lot to cover, kind of a jam-packed episode this week. We're going to talk about the UHSP Tip-Off Classic that I was at this past weekend. Talk about some teams that really kind of stood out to me, some games that were kind of really stood out to me in that Tip-Off Classic, which is it was a great event put on by Coach Markel Cox and the University of Health and Science Pharmacy team and SID department. Everybody around that definitely deserves a round of applause for what they were able to put on for the 2 days. It was a great environment. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute here. Then I'm going to introduce a new segment. Is this news? And I'll kind of break it down a little bit when we talk about the focus of that. And then we're going to talk about our first real upsets of the season so far in this young season. Some top teams, some top 20 teams have already fallen. Some receiving votes teams have already fallen. And some teams are in jeopardy of falling out of the top 30, 35 picture altogether. So we're going to talk about all that in a moment here. But again, we're going to start with the UHSP Classic and kind of a recap, some takeaways from that one. Again, a lot of good teams that were in it. Obviously, ourselves at St. Thomas, Freed-Hardeman, Cumberland of Tennessee, UHSP obviously was in it, Central Methodist, Ottawa of Arizona, just to name a few, Arkansas Baptist, who I think had a really good showing, the Oklahoma City Stars. I'm going to start there. I think for me, the two teams that kind of were the most surprising, or not surprising, but like it's surprising in a good way. Like I was glad they were there and I was able to watch a little bit of their games, were the Oklahoma City Stars and the Central Methodist Eagles. I think those two teams, from an under-the-radar aspect, again, 10 teams overall played on either day. Some teams played on both days, obviously. But they definitely showed a little bit more to me in the sense of, like, I'm kind of excited to continue to follow them throughout the season and see what else they have in their respective conferences, as well as what they're going to have in their non-conference rest of their schedule, because they do have some tough teams lined up. From a standpoint of teams that I was just excited to see up close and personal, Freed-Hardeman, definitely one of those teams that I just – you never get tired of seeing top 10 teams in the country play, whether you're playing against them like we were, or whether you were playing, you're watching them play like we also did. I definitely was excited to see them and kind of just understand what makes them one of the best teams in the country. And then also was excited to finally see Cumberland of Tennessee in person. The similarities between those two teams coming from the Mid-South, obviously very, very impressive, very, very well coached. And again, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Mid-South. There's kind of a preview there because this is going to be kind of a Mid-South focus episode. At least part of it will be because of the weekend that the conference had as a whole. But yeah, like overall, those are kind of the teams that stood out to me. Again, some really impressive performances from some individual players from Arkansas Baptist, from Mission, who we played, who had a great tough game against us and the final game of the weekend. So overall, it was a really great event put on by UHSP and the program. I have it on good authority on some big names, and I mean big names coming out to this classic next year. That's something that Coach Cox did tell me that he wants to do kind of a yearly thing, make it one of those go-tos that everybody's got to be at. I'm very excited to see who else he brings in, because again, the two names he told me, they are some hitters. They are some heavy hitters for sure. So I'm very excited to see what else he's going to be able to cook up. It's a great tournament. Everything's within walking distance. The hotel that we were staying at least right behind the gym, like it was all really convenient, really well put together. So I'm very excited to see what else they're going to be able to do for next year. And shout out especially to the UHSP SID department for helping us with the coverage for those games that we were able to have someone live statting and the interviews and all that kind of stuff. So again, round of applause for a great overall event put on by the UHSP program as a whole. Moving on now to our new segment. Again, I hinted at it at the beginning of the episode. The new segment is simply called Is This News? I'm going to talk about a little bit of a pattern that I saw throughout this past weekend of games, so to speak, and just kind of talk about, is this a big deal? Is it newsworthy to talk about this? And it's really as simple as the Mid-South. The Mid-South had a heck of a weekend, and I just kind of wanted to go through it, talk about some numbers, and this starts back last Thursday. Well, I guess 2 Thursdays ago now, when Freed-Hardeman played Blue Mountain Christian. In that game, going to give credit to Blue Mountain Christian because they were up by 14 in the first quarter, and Freed Hardeman in one quarter pretty much erased that deficit and never looked back. But it did say a lot about that Blue Mountain Christian team, so I wanted to give them their flowers for putting up a great fight against a Freed Hardeman team at their place, kind of making them have to come back and kind of meet the test, meet the challenge that Blue Mountain Christian was imposing on them, so to speak. But starting on that game, Freed Hardeman wins 69-51. Then Huntington at Cumberland's dominates Huntington by 20. Joy Kendrick, 23-11, 2 assists, 2 steals. Milligan beats Lindsey Wilson. Milligan at Lindsey Wilson. Lindsey Wilson wins that one, 81-67. As a whole, between Thursday and we'll say Saturday. No, we'll say Thursday. So Thursday to Thursday almost. The Mid-South as a whole went 8 for 8. An impressive 8 for 8. That's not counting the 3 games that happened after Thursday, with Campusville beating Johnson 99-56, CMU losing to Cumberlands at the UHSP Classic 63-45. I saw that one in person. And then Bethel taking down Indiana Wesleyan 66-52. And there's still one game left this week, technically, with Lindsey Wilson at GGC, which I think is going to be a really good game. One of the reasons we put under the radar, because it's a really hot GGC team against a very game Lindsey Wilson team at GGC. So kind of want to keep an eye on that one for sure. But when we look at these games and the Mid-South as a whole, this is probably the one conference that I have deep dived into from day one. From day one, again, there's a reason I wanted to have Coach Chris Nelson on as the first interview, because I was really excited to talk about what he was able to do with his team, but also the Mid-South as a whole. It's the reason I wanted to get Coach Mark Vaughn on, because I want to talk more about the Mid-South. I want to understand this conference that I feel like, yes, it's up there with the GPAC, the Crossroads, the Frontier, I think has entered the chat for sure. But I don't know if it's getting the same level of attention. Yes, I understand 6 teams, 5 of them made the national tournament last year. Like, I get all of that. But I still feel like they're somewhat under the radar. And the is the Mid-South the best conference in women's basketball right now in the NAIA? Because in those 8 games, 6 out of the 8 games, their opponents shot 36% or less. That means the defense was stout. The highest team to shoot against a Mid-South team, again, that Thursday to Thursday window, again, 7 days, a whole week, was ourselves against Freed Hardeman at 43%. But then the lowest one was Point against Cumberlands of Tennessee at 27%. Then you look over at all 8 Mid-South teams shot over 45% from the field. The highest was Freed Hardeman against us at 61%, and the lowest was Lindsey Wilson against Huntington at 45%. So they're doing it on both sides of the ball here. They're being able to keep teams below 36, 35% shooting pretty much statistically consistently, and then they're still putting up offensive execution clinics all the way through. For the games that I saw, the games that I didn't see, just reading at the numbers, looking at the highlights, looking at some clips throughout the game, that was what I noticed the most. The defense was ridiculous. The one thing I would say from the defense side of the ball, if you play a Mid-South team, you have to be prepared for your ball handlers to be pressured 94 feet the entire game. I watched Cumberland, Tennessee against Point. And when Cumberland was on offense, they had the ball coming across. They got in their sets seamlessly. Really no type of pressure, no type of discomfort coming from the defense. Meanwhile, on the other side of it, when I saw Point going into their offensive sets, Ty Berkeley was in the shorts of the point guard for Point from the second the ball was inbounded. And yes, was she getting beat, so to speak? Maybe, but she was always getting back in front, chesting up, getting back in front, just kind of being a pest on defense. And multiple times, the point guard was starting the offense from half court almost, maybe the volleyball line, best case scenario. And that was what I noticed, the biggest thing. They set the tone at the point of attack. All these Mid-South teams do that. If you're going to play a Mid-South team, you have to know your point guard is in for a long night. They're going to wear you down physically, just bumping you, making you have to speed up, slow down, play at their pace. That's how they want to play. That's how Mid-South teams want to play. They want to control the tempo of the game. They want to run when they want to run. They want to walk when they want to walk, and they want to do a little bit of both when they want to do a little bit of both. That was what I noticed from the defensive side of the ball. It was a very impressive performance for me for defensively, the way they're moving around, the way they're flying around. And then on offense, they execute to a T, but again, at their pace. Last year, I saw Briarcliff play up close and personal. And the one thing I took away from them was the speed that they play at. But it wasn't that they were running the ball. They were just kind of moving the ball at a top speed. For the Mid-South, a little bit different. They don't necessarily move the ball that fast, but they have so much player movement off the ball. They have so many opportunities to catch a team slipping, whether it's a backdoor, a slip, a quick, handoff into a down screen type of they have so many actions because of all the player movement. The ball might not be flying around as much as basketball heads might want or they will like to see, side to side ball movement, stuff like that. But I think it's just, you got to get one or the other. If you get both, awesome, you're going to be an elite offense. We get that. But I think every coach in the country, no matter what level you're talking about, no matter if you're talking about men's or women's basketball, your goal is to have either an offense that moves the ball at a very, very fast pace or an offense that has so much player movement, it's hard to guard. It causes mismatches. It causes miscommunication. It causes opportunities for your offense to thrive on simple things. The amount of backdoors I saw this past weekend between Freed Hardman and Cumberland, Tennessee was actually impressive. It was actually amazing how many times they were able to do that. And even when we could see it all coming from the sideline, it just, sometimes it don't matter if they know it's coming. Basketball is a perfect example of really any sport. They might know the play is coming. They still got to guard it. And if they don't guard it to the T, that pass is getting through, that ball is getting through. So it's very impressive what they were able to do on the offensive side of the ball for all of these teams that I'm talking about that had games this weekend, because I think every team was in it. Even Georgetown, they had not necessarily a tough matchup against Carolina, but they still handled business. And that's the last thing I'll say about these Mid-South teams. The conference as a whole, in these 8 games I'm talking about, again, not the Georgetown game. I didn't have that one in the numbers yet. But the 8 games that I'm talking about, the conference averaged 83.1 points per game and held opponents to 66 points per game. That is almost a 20-point difference in a week span of multiple teams. And yes, was every game a tough game? No, I get that. But I see on this schedule, you've got ourselves, you've got Bethel, you've got Johnson, you've got Huntington, you've got Milligan, you've got Indiana Wesleyan, technically twice, even though I only had them in the numbers once. Johnson, same thing. They were technically twice on the schedule, but I only had them once. Huntington was on here twice. These are Blue Mountain Christian. These are good teams. These are good teams that you're holding almost under 65 points per game, and that makes some of these really good offenses seem average. That's 65. We said it before on the podcast. I'd say anywhere in the mid-60s is about an average offense. That's where you would like to be, just to be a good offense, to be an offense that can win on any given night. Anything below that, you're getting into a territory where you got to get better, whether it's execution, whether it's hitting shots, whatever the case may be. Anything above that, you're an elite offense. You're creeping up there. Again, 83 points per game as a conference. That's very, very impressive. That's very, very impressive. And it shows, again, the conference was out there handling business. They were handling business against teams they're supposed to beat. They were beating them by 30 points. And against those tougher games, the closest game this past those 7 games was Milligan against Cumberland, and that was a 13-point game. Yes, 13 points is not a blowout by any stretch of the imagination, but that's a multiple possession game against a very good, hungry Milligan team, and Cumberland's of Kentucky handled business. The largest win was point against Cumberland's of Tennessee, where it was a 32-point game. And it got pretty big throughout the game, but Point was able to bring it down towards the end of the game there. This weekend, I really feel like the conference kind of got put on notice. They put everybody on notice hey, we are. I'm going to go on a limb and say the Mid-South, yes, it's one weekend. Yes, it might be early in the season. But I've seen enough. I've seen enough to be able to say this is the best conference in NAIA women's basketball. Now, I'm not saying they have the best teams. Now, listen to the wording here. I'm just saying as a totality, as a complete conference from number 1 to number 6, all 6 teams, I think they have the best makeup. I think they have an identity. I think they all play that same identity, and it comes down to who can play that identity the best when the conference tournament comes around, when the regular season conference slate of their schedule comes around. Because, again, I go back to Cumberland, Tennessee. Cumberland, Tennessee last year didn't win a single game in the Mid-South. They went 0-12. They beat Point by 32 points. And I'm not saying Point is one of the top teams in the country. I get that. But you beat Point by 32 points. You then beat Cumberland's of Tennessee. You beat Central Methodist, who handled the Stars in their first game of the UHSP Classic, 63-45. And, again, it could have gotten bigger, but Cumberland, Tennessee kind of let their foot off the gas towards the end there, which I didn't necessarily like. But that kind of goes to show you, even the worst team in the conference last year, if you took them out of the Mid-South and plopped them maybe any other conference, they're at least the top 3 team in that conference, comfortably. So I really believe the Mid-South kind of put people on notice of hey, You want to be judged against national contending teams. This is the conference you got to try and get to. This is the conference you got to try and play against. And I give the coaches credit because they're not afraid of going out and scheduling these games. If we look at the schedule here, not a single game on here it helped the Mid-South. And by that, what I mean by that is Freed-Hardeman is the number 6 team in the country. They did not play anybody this past weekend that is above them. Now, again, I'm not saying that as a down thing. I'm just saying that, like, they're not scared of going to go play teams that are unranked, teams that are below them in the stand in the power rankings, because they don't fear what the outcome is going to be. You look at Cumberland, Tennessee. They're not even ranked, but they're going to go out there and play teams that they want to play, no matter if they're above them, below them, whatever the case is. Bethel, there's only one team above Bethel right now in the polls, and that's Dort. So you could have easily, coaches out there, there's a lot of coaches out there that would have shied away from playing a number 10 team in the country so early in the season. Yes, I get it. Bethel has a lot of returning players, and it's a little bit different, but still, it holds weight. But they're not scared of that. And I give credit to the coaches and the players for welcoming that challenge. This is the other reason I want to say they're the best conference right now in the NAIA and women's basketball world. They embrace the pressure of that bullseye on their back. Do they have the two-time national champions Dort defenders? No, they don't. And I get that. And again, Dort has been the best team in the country for the past 2 years, over 365 days. No one's debating that. But after Dort, there's a reason the next, out of the top 6, 3, if I remember off the top of my head correctly, are all Mid-South teams. It goes Dort, Bethel, Campbellsville, and then number 6 is going to be Freed-Hardeman. Like, there's a reason that these things are happening. There's a reason in the top 25, 5 out of the 6 made it in the polls. These things do not just mean, they're not just numbers. They mean something right now. Yes, it's early in the season, but they mean something, and the committee sees it. The Mid-South is the best conference in women's basketball right now. The numbers don't lie. The play doesn't lie. It all comes together. And I'll end it on this. When I say the play comes together, these ladies in the Mid-South can shoot the orange off the ball. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. I've seen it on film. I've seen it. What will really surprise you is they don't rely on the 3 ball as much as you might think. Yes, you've got a Carissa Curtis knockdown. You've got Micah Hart knockdown. Joy Kendrick, knockdown. Like, we get that. Jenna Saturday, like, there's a lot of players out there in the Mid-South that can just flat out shoot the ball. But the conference averaged, as a conference, 41.5 paint points and held teams under 20. So you're talking about a team and a conference that's got some lethal shooting ability. Lethal. But they're doing their damage on the inside, in transition, in the half court. They play late into the shot clock, and they're comfortable with late in shot clock. They're comfortable in the quarter situations. They're comfortable. I remember Freed-Hardeman, I want to say they were playing UHSP. It was at the end of the second quarter. 1 second left on the clock. Side out. Lily Key sealed her defender on the backside. Jenna Saturday, I believe, was the one inbounding the ball. Threw it over the top. Perfect pass, perfect catch, 2 points. Could have easily gone to a shooter. Curtis was on the court. Rachel Saturday was also on the court. Could have gone for a quick 3. Try and get an extra point. No, they're going inside. Lily Key had 25 points off the bench. Like, this is not a random thing. The Mid-South, we gave it the penitentiary because of the defense they play, and again, the numbers don't lie. The defense is what is the calling card in the Mid-South. If you do not have a point guard who can handle pressure for an entire 40 minutes, it is going to be a long night for your offense, for your team, for your entire program as a whole. But then when you go past that, I think the next identity of this conference is the paint. Whoever controls the paint will win that game, or at least put themselves in position to win that game. Then, yes, you're talking about the 3 ball, you're talking about other things, and I get that. But the paint, that's what is going to, you live and die by in that beautiful little area in front of the rim, that house that people like to talk about. We protect with effort. I saw it with this Mid-South conference this past weekend. They value that paint like it is their house, and you saw it on both sides of the ball, keeping teams out of it and forcefully putting themselves in it. Whether it's ball screen action, switch happens, we're feeding it to the post. Whether it's pick and roll action, I'm getting downhill. I don't care if you go under. Don't get me wrong. You got to go over, and that's what leads to a lot of these things. That's why I say the shooting cannot be overlooked. I'm not going under a Jenna Satterley because she's going to hit it. I'm not going under a Carissa Curtis because she's going to hit it. I know this. Joy Kendrick, the Micah Hart, Micah Buchanan. Like, they're not Mikey Buchanan. They're not going to go under on you. And that's what leads to the downhill drive. That's what leads to the paint touches. But it's still, you still got to finish down there. You still got to make good decisions down there. And they do 9 out of 10 times. So I was really impressed by the Mid-South this weekend. And again, this is without throwing into the numbers. The 99-56 win Campbellsville had over Johnson. The 63-45 win Cumberland, Tennessee had over CMU. And the 66-52 win that Bethel had over Indiana Wesleyan. So it's very, very, very impressive weekend. And I do believe we have now seen officially, for me, the Mid-South is the conference to beat as a whole. If you get a win against I'm telling you this right now. When the polls come out next weekend, next week, Bethel's still going to be number 2. I don't think Dort's losing that number 1 spot unless they lose a game. Like, I really don't see that. Campbellsville stays at 3. Cumberland's of Kentucky's going to move up at least top 20. I don't see them going outside the top 25, especially with some of these upsets that happened this past weekend. Same thing with Lindsey Wilson. I think they go up. I think a win against GGC is going to be very, very important for them just because GGC is, again, red hot right now. I believe they're 2-1 when I'm recording this. So I'm not saying they're undefeated, but we've seen them put up some really good performances early on in their season. I think they go top 20, though, for Lindsey Wilson. I think Cumberland, Tennessee gets 2 letters next to their name. I think they get receiving votes. Maybe not a lot, but I think they're going to be in the receiving votes picture. Georgetown, I like them receiving votes as well. So it's going to be interesting to see when these polls come out. But don't get it twisted. No Mid-South team. Don't be surprised if you see a lot of Mid-South teams above 15 and above. 15 and above. That means the lowest team right now in the top 25 is Cumberland's of Kentucky. They're 25. They could have a 10 spot jump. I really believe that. And it is a stretch, absolutely, and I get that. But that's the weekend that the conference had as a whole, and that's the weekend that the Patriots had within themselves, respectively. And again, there are some top teams that just dropped some non-ranked opponents. So things are going to shake up right now in these next polls. The Mid-South as a whole, heck of a weekend. They deserve all their flowers, and that's why I'm giving it to them right now. They are the conference to beat if you want to be national contenders. If you want to fight for a red banner, go and find a Mid-South team because they are willing to bring all. They want all the smoke. They want all the smoke, and I respect it. I really, really do. Heading over to now the game of the week. Talking a little bit about the Mid-South was obviously Indiana Wesleyan versus Bethel. I could have easily gone with Campbellsville. I went with Bethel just because 2 versus 10. It's 1 spot. Could have been either one. It was really a toss-up between those 2. Went with Bethel. No Madison Hart. Madison Hart did not play in this game. Did not matter because Mikey Buchanan stepped up. Big game for her, and this game shows the depth of Bethel. For you to have one of your All-Americans from last year not play, and Mikey step in, 19 points. I'm going to give her 20. And then MJ Simmons getting 13 and 12 double-double with points and rebounds, plus what obviously Michael Hart's going to give you. She, I believe, I think was like 14 and 8, something like that. 8 rebounds, obviously. It just shows the depth of this team. It shows what Coach Chris Nelson was able to go out and get, and they are the second best team in the country right now. They are that. They earned the number 2 spot, and they are holding on to it. Similar to Dora, I believe 1 and 2 is going to be, at least for this first part of the season. For the non-conference part, for the fall into the winter, I think we're going to go into the calendar year with Dort and Bethel sitting at 1 and 2 for, if not the whole semester, majority of it. I really believe that's the level that Bethel is playing at right now. And again, Dort being Dort, we all know what Dort's going to do. That's really all I have to say on that game because Indiana Wesleyan was winning that game. Don't get me wrong. I was watching along, or I was on the live stats, watching and kind of keeping updated with that. Bethel they were in a dogfight. It wasn't until really the end of the third, I want to say, third quarter as a whole, that things kind of changed around for them. And when I checked back in the fourth, they were able to put it away with a double-digit win, 66-52. But for me, the stat that I only cared about was the fact that you don't have one of the Hart sisters, one of your 2 dynamic duo, one half of your dynamic duo, and you still beat the number 10 team in the country, who call it what it is. I think Indiana Wesleyan got a little chip on their shoulder right now. I believe that you've dropped 2 games against really good opponents, games that you were the underdogs in. Again, underdogs loosely, obviously, in Bethel and Campbellsville. I don't think it's time for the panic button, but I think that game specifically for Bethel, that's the reason I kind of want to go down as the game of the week, because Indiana Wesleyan is coming off of the Campbellsville loss. So you're coming off that loss. You know you got a big opportunity to kind of get your get back, so to speak, against Bethel. You rightfully so expect Indiana Wesleyan to come in guns blazing, and they did. But Bethel weathered the storm, and they were able to come out with the victory. So I'm really impressed with Indiana Wesleyan for what they were able to throw that first 2 to 3 punches, I would say. But Bethel stay in the ring, stay in the center of that squared circle, and return that haymaker right back and never look back. So, but the biggest thing for me was definitely the depth of Bethel. I think it's been on full display, but I think this game kind of showed it that it is going to be a big part of their success moving forward, and a reason that Coach Chris Nelson was always talking about what they're bringing back. The fact that you played 3 freshmen last year on that national tournament run all the way to the Fab Four. Now the experience is coming in. Now they know what it takes to win at the highest level. They're feeling comfortable. They now, last year you can tell it was a little bit of like, we want it. We don't know how we're gonna get it, but we're gonna get it. Now the vibe is they got aura. Like, I'm gonna be honest. It feels like they know there is execution behind the expectation that this Bethel team has within themselves. They expected to win that game. They expect to win the Mid-South. They expect to win a national championship. They expect these things, like all teams in the country do. But they're executing like they've never been there before, and that's the most dangerous combination in any sport. When you have a national contending team executing like they are a brand new team trying to make a name for themselves, those are the hardest teams to beat. Those are the hardest teams to beat, and those are the teams that end up staying in it longer in the postseason, in the national tournament, because they just ironed out all the little things. They do little things to the best of their ability and do it better than the big stuff. They do it better than the big stuff because those are the things that are going to help win them in big games like this, in game of the week level atmospheres throughout the season. There's only one game left for the Mid-South, and again, that's Lindsey Wilson versus at GGC. I've got Lindsey Wilson in that game at GGC. Think it's going to be a dogfight for sure, but I believe Lindsey Wilson will kind of wrap up a great week for the Mid-South throughout the entire Week 2 slate. It was a Week 2 dominated by the Mid-South, and I don't think that's anything crazy to say. Now we're going to head over to, again, another edition, the continued edition of Is This News? Upsets. Wow, what a week of upsets it was. And I'm going to talk about mainly 5 upsets, kind of all over the place. Number 15, Southern Oregon, receiving votes LSU-A. Number 18, Arizona Christian, receiving votes LSU-A. LSU-A definitely did not have a great weekend when we talk about the polls. And then number 23, Shawnee State. I'm going to start with the biggest one for me, Shawnee State. Shawnee State, number 23, going to University of Northwestern Ohio. Northwestern Ohio wins by 7. That's a big win for them. That's a win that, and this is what a lot of people need to understand out there. It's November. We're officially in November. A game in November can be the difference between you making and missing the national tournament. And that's the world we live in. If I go out and beat a number 23 team in the country, and Shawnee State's still going to have a good season, they'll probably maybe get to a receiving votes now, or maybe number 25. They're going to fall a little bit. But if they stay in the top 25 now for University of Northwestern Ohio, your resume says you beat a top 25 team. Yes, it was at home, so it's going to take a little bit of a hit. I get that. But still, you beat them by 7. So it wasn't like you eked it out. Yes, 7 is not like a 10, 15-point win, but it's 7. Anything 5 and below, to me, it's a one-possession game. Because basically you're talking about a 3, you miss some free throws, tie game, now it's a whole different ballgame. 5 points can evaporate, especially in the way basketball is played, in 15 seconds. 6, 7 to 8, maybe 9 points, that's a comfortable win to me. That's multiple possessions that you need. 15 seconds is hard to kind of evaporate a 7-point lead. 10 and above, you won that one. You handled it. It was maybe, it doesn't necessarily mean it felt like a 14 to 10 point win, but on the stat book, it's going to be a double-digit win and a comfortable one at that. 7 points to me, you handled business. Like, you won. There was no nail-biting, thrilling ending that kind of happened. Probably some free throws at the end to get it to 7, but 7 looks a lot better than 3, than 4, than 5. It looks a lot better when the community looks and says, University of Northwestern Ohio, they have a good conference. They had a good conference run. Maybe they make it into the conference tournament championship game. Maybe you lose by a bucket here or there. They beat Shawnee State. That's a big win. And the other part of it, too, is for a team like Northwestern Ohio, you're new to this conversation. So you don't need as much big wins under your belt. A team that's always been in the national tournament for the past few years, they might need more than one, or they might need a really high one. You got to get a number 15, number 10. You're new to the conversation like this team is. 23 can go a long way. If they go up, Shawnee State, that's going to stay on the resume for Northwestern Ohio. That's a big win for them. Big win for them. It was a free throw game. It was honestly a free throw weekend for all these upsets because that's going to be the common theme through every single one that I talk about. Because in this free throw game, 6-17 for Shawnee State, 27 for 36 by Northwestern Ohio. And I get it. Northwestern Ohio was home. I understand that. But at what point are we going to say play defense without fouling? At what point? Because as much as you might be at the crib, at their place, and the referees and stuff, I get that. It's a common conversation we're always going to have when it comes to basketball. And I understand it. It's a valid conversation. It's valid. But 27 makes, and that's not even what I'm talking about. It's a 36 attempts. When you attempt less free throws than your opponent made, you're off to a bad start. Because at the end of the day, it's the same referees. So if they're going to call 36, they're going to give 36 free throws to University of Northwestern Ohio. Put pressure on the rim. Get downhill. Go to work. Make the referees have to call the game both. Make it to where your coach has the ability to say, call it both ways. And I'm not saying that you didn't do that. Maybe you did. I'm not going to sit here and say that I've watched every single game and I watched the entire game. But the numbers don't lie. And to an extent, what I see is 6-17. 17 is a pretty high number. So it's not like that was a bad number. Because even, let's say, 27-36 for Northwestern Ohio, now for Shawnee State, it's about the makes. I need you to shoot better than 6-17. You give me 15-17. It's a different ball game now. Even with 27, because they missed 9 shots. They missed 9 free throws. Did Northwestern Ohio. So it's not like they were knocking down at an amazing clip. And then meanwhile, for Shawnee State, you missed 11. Yeah, 6-17 looks kind of bigger, but it's only 2 free throws. So it's not like they made more free throws out of the attempts that they had. They just had more attempts overall. That's a big part of it. The less free throws you have, the more you got to make. It's just how it works. But if you get 36 free throw attempts, you can afford to miss 9. Because at 27-36 looks that's where my eyes went to right away. Right away, that's what I looked at. So you got to be able to defend without fouling, and when you get to the line, you got to make them count. Got to make them count. As for Northwestern Ohio, 3 double-figure scores, led by, of course, Miss Lawson, 23 for her. But the player of the game for me, and a round of applause worthy performance, Lori Hoffman, 19 rebounds, 15 defensive rebounds. The girl should be tested for magnets in her hand. The girl probably has a radar in her mind for the ball. She may be the Dennis Rodman of the NAIA. Let's do it. I'm here for it. I don't care. It's only one game, but this is what I'm here for. But in all seriousness, that's a heck of a performance and a star in her role, and to do it to the highest level. 19 rebounds is something you are never going to gloss over because those are hustle points. Those are hustle opportunities. I can only imagine out of the 19, by the time she gets to 10, every other rebound is you're getting double teamed on the rebounds. Like that's the level of gravity you're now forcing, which is going to lead to your teammates getting some offensive rebounds, maybe, or defensive rebounds, and being able to push in transition. So definitely want to give Lori her flowers because 19 rebounds is nothing to sneeze at, and it's very impressive performance for her. Heading over now to the team that I think that Shawnee State game was the biggest upset for me, just from a standpoint of the unknown. I was not ready for that at all. The team that I think took the hardest hit was definitely LSU-A. Now, they have a chance to kind of come up a little better because they have Loyola to end week 2 on Thursday. But, man, it hurts to lose to an unranked Oklahoma Wesleyan team. It hurts to lose to receiving votes Texas Wesleyan. I believe they are. And I'm looking at the numbers. My biggest takeaway for the Texas Wesleyan game, the Rams defended the 3-ball very well and then scored it even better. 1 for 11 for the LSU-A, 7 for 30 for the Rams. Again, 30 attempts, 7 makes. It's not a great percentage, but at the end of the day, when you shoot, in the Rams case, a solid 23% compared with a not so great 9% for LSU-A, it's going to come back to hurt you. It's going to come back to hurt you for sure. So I think that's my biggest takeaway. And it's similar to what I just talked about with Shawnee State, playing without fouling. 15 free throw attempts is what Cameron Phillips had for Texas Wesleyan. 15 by one player is not good. That you can't, you got to be able to adjust. You got to be able to, even if the referees are making some bad calls, I'm not going to sit here and say referees are perfect. They're not even going to say they're perfect. But if you know that they're calling the game a certain way, at what point are you going to adjust? When you adjust, let's see what happens. Now, if they continue to call crazy calls, I'm sorry, it's just going to be one of those nights. It happens. But if you're not adjusting your defensive, angles, aggressiveness, discipline, I'm putting it on you first, then the referees. So that's how it's always got to be. So that's the Texas Wesleyan game. As for Oklahoma Wesleyan, 3 players beat you, in my opinion, if you're LSU-A. Gracie Alexander had 24, Taylor Harris had 10, and Ashlyn Baker had 13. Right there, I'm trying to do quick math here, 24, 10, that's 34, 47 of Oklahoma Wesleyan's 73 points. That's not a good defensive performance by a team that I feel like was going to have a but a solid leap forward in terms of the national rankings, last year making it to the national tournament with an at-large bid. So I thought they were going to be, they get Goff, who's going to be a really good player for them offensively, but now the defense seems to have kind of hurt a little bit here. We got to find some balance. And again, free throw battles in this game was not definitely going in the favor of the Generals. 4 of 8 for them, 14 for 23 for Oklahoma Wesleyan. It's just not going to – I've beat the horse enough. We understand the free throw battle and the free throw disparity. I've only gone through 3 games, and we see a constant theme with all these games where the free throws came down to be, in my opinion, one of, if not the deciding factor at the end of the game. Now, the other game that was a very close second to being the most unknown, and statistically, I guess you could say it is the bigger upset just because they are a higher seed than Shawnee State was. Arizona Christian loses to Eastern Oregon at home. Well, at Eastern Oregon, I should say. 66-57. Free throw battles. Arizona Christian went 8 for 8. That's great. That's cool. You didn't miss a shot. But you allowed 23 attempts, 15 makes for Eastern Oregon. They doubled your points at the line. Never a good thing. Never a good thing. And then the bench points. 2 to 35. Eastern Oregon just had a deeper night. 5 players scored for ACU, 8 for Eastern Oregon. It's not going to translate. Now, I get it. Offenses have off nights. I understand that. But you can still win games with off nights. It helps if you don't put them on the line 23 times. And it helps if – and when I say 8 people scored for Eastern Oregon, I think 2 of those players were 1 bucket, a 3 and a 2, respectively. So I'm not sitting here saying that Eastern Oregon had 8 players double-figure scoring. No, that's not what I'm saying. Because at that point, I'm talking, let's say Eastern Oregon had a heck of a night. Hats off to you. We keep it pushing next game. It's not, 2 points off the bench. That's 1 bucket. And I remember looking at the box score. That's what I had. That's what I looked at. So it's more of an Arizona Christian. I'm not taking anything away from Eastern Oregon. They did their job. Being aggressive, getting on the line, making sure that ball is moving, making sure that we're getting people involved in the offense, and the bench being the big reason they won that game. As much as the free throws are the free throws, I'm giving that to the reserves. I'm giving that to the subs coming off the bench. Way to come in and contribute in an impressive way, especially offensively against one of the top 20 teams in the country at the time. I do think Arizona Christian may be in jeopardy of nosediving, so to speak, out of the top 20 picture, top 20 for sure. And at that point, I could be surprised if they're receiving votes. I really don't. I really wouldn't be. That's definitely my biggest takeaway from that game. I think Arizona Christian's got to be a little bit better getting their offense, finding that flow. Again, offenses have off nights. I get it. It's 1 game. But back to the segment. Is this news? You're looking at this from the 4 games I've talked about already. Is this news? LSU-A not being able to win games they need to win and win big games in certain aspects. Is this news? University of Northwestern Ohio may have just given themselves an at-large bid to lose. I think that's how much the Shawnee State team is going to get better throughout the season, and I think that's how much University of Northwestern Ohio is going to be good this year in their conference as well as non-conference slate. And then is this news that Eastern Oregon kind of have a chip on their shoulder? I think they got a chip on their shoulder. I was kind of surprised they weren't receiving votes, to be honest with you guys. I'm not saying they should have been close to top 25, but give me a vote. One vote, I thought at least. Again, there's definitely some storylines we're going to be following throughout the season. The last upset I wanted to talk about before I throw it to you guys for the rest of the week, Southern Oregon receiving votes Montana Tech, 67-52. The other thing I want to talk about real quick before I touch this game, none of these games were relatively close. Again, 67-52, Montana Tech over Southern Oregon, 73-64, Oklahoma Wesleyan over LSU-A, 66-57, Arizona Christian, Eastern Oregon, 61-56. I mean, it's a 5-point game. LSU-A, Texas Wesleyan, that's probably the closest one for sure. But again, like I said, 5 points, you're just on the cutoff of a comfortably nice win, and 2 bounces, we got ourselves a ball game. So, but for Southern Oregon, bad shooting night for sure. You shot under 30%, maybe I think a little bit lower. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I didn't write the number down, but I remember saying bad shooting night, so that's why I put it in the notes. Montana Tech wins the paint battle, 34-18, and then points off turnover, 25-6. So a bad shooting night, which means out of those 25 points off turnovers, I should say, that does not account for the bad misses, the unlucky bounces. So who knows how many, because coaches will tell you, bad shots are turnovers. They might not go down as a turnover in the box score, but if I shoot a quick 3, that's not my game. We got no type of flow, no type of offense, and it clanks off the rim and bounces to half court, that's a transition bucket waiting to happen. So again, it isn't a turnover, but it might as well be. And that's a point off turnover. So out of 25, I could give him 30. That's at least an extra 5 points. If you're having a bad shooting night like that, because they're not all going to be air balls and layups around the rim. You're going to shoot the Southern Oregon can shoot the ball very well. So they got up a lot of threes. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're able to get good misses. There's such a thing as good misses. Around the rim, give your bigs opportunities to get offensive rebounds, give your guards some chances to crash possibly. But bad misses, again, clanks off the rim, goes to half court. It's an advantage to the defense because they're running that way. The offense is the one's kind of going to get caught in no man's land between either getting back or crashing for the offensive rebound. And when you crash, that ball might bounce over your head. Again, unlucky, but it's part of the game. It's part of the game. A player that I think had a really good game for Montana Tech, Hadley Humphreys, 12 points, 10 rebounds, 5 steals for her. So very good performance for her. I think Montana Tech is going to use this one to get in the top 25 picture. I think this is a big game for them. They also beat College of Idaho, if I'm remembering correctly, by about 10. So they had a really good weekend, I should say, for this team. Kind of an underrated team that I think is going to start getting some national attention now with 2 really solid wins under their belt. That, again, will definitely help the resume. And in the Southern Oregon's case, where they might go down a little bit in the polls, I don't think they're going to go down too far because out of all of the teams I just mentioned, the ones that I think are in jeopardy of falling the most are LSU-A. The second one would definitely be Arizona Christian. Actually, I think the second one would be Shawnee State. And the reason I say that is because, again, Eastern Oregon has always been relatively around when we talk about the national scene, top 25, receiving votes, kind of in that picture. It's not the craziest thing to think that Arizona Christian lost that game. It's still an upset, but it's not the craziest thing to think about. University of Northwestern Ohio is new to the chat. They're new to this conversation, so it's definitely going to hurt Shawnee State a little bit. What I will say is both of them were at home for the upset, so that's definitely going to be part of the factor too. I would keep an eye on those 2 teams when the next polls come out of maybe both, but for sure one taking a little bit of a dive. And then Southern Oregon, they definitely had the least of an impact. Montana Tech is going to be a really good team in the Frontier. They're going to get in the top 25 now. Southern Oregon might go down to maybe 20, and that's pushing it. That's kind of too far probably, but I'm just kind of going worst case scenario. So I do think that was going to be the least impactful of the upsets. But 6 upsets, again, 2 of them involving the same team, but 6 upsets are kind of a big deal over the weekend. And Halloween came spooky for some of these teams, and in a good and bad way. Good and bad way. Before I send you guys into the week of NAIA hoops, gonna give y'all a quick update for the rest of the week's schedule. Do have another coaches interview coming out on Thursday. Very excited for you guys to hear that one. I'm not gonna tell you guys who it is just yet, but really good, really great conversation there. I definitely think you guys should check it out. And some key games throughout the week, aside from our Under the Radars that we posted on our Instagram earlier in the weekend. Southeastern versus Bruton Parker. That's on Tuesday. I think it's going to be a very underrated game for sure. Could have made the cut for the graphic, but went a different direction. But I think Southeastern, who just eked out a win against Faulkner by 2 at home, I want to say it was. Very interesting to see how Bruton Parker is going to do it because Bruton Parker is the home team in this situation. So a good road test for Southeastern early on. Hastings versus Friends. Friends kind of a nice start to their season. I believe they're 2-0 right now. Hastings, a top 20 team in the country, looking to kind of move up the rankings a little bit. I think they have a good chance of doing that. So definitely want to keep an eye on that one on Wednesday. LSU-A versus Loyola. LSU-A needs this one. We haven't fully introduced this segment yet, but we do have a segment that'll be introduced later in the season called Call Outs, where we call out a player, a team, a conference, whatever it is. I would call out LSU-A right now. I'm calling you out. You got to win this game. You got to win this game to even have a conversation about staying in the receiving votes picture. I believe it's not going to happen. You lost 2 games, one of them being to an unranked team and one of them being to a receiving votes team. I think best case, you're just on the bubble, so to speak, of the receiving votes picture. If you lose this game to Loyola, you're not going to be receiving votes. You're going to have to fight your way to get back in there. I think Loyola is the favorites for this one. They are at home. So I'm going with Loyola, but I'm calling out LSU-A to answer the call of being able to take this one on the road. It would help a lot winning this game for the Generals. It really, really would. Southern Oregon, bounce back game against the Masters. I think that'll be a good one to keep an eye on as well. Dordt versus Grandview. Just kind of want to see Dordt against some really good competition. And then Dakota Wesleyan against ASU, more so on the ASU side. Similar to what I mentioned with LSU-A. If ACU is able to win that game against Dakota Wesleyan, not going with Arizona Christian, I'm going to point that out there, but you have a reason to stay in the top 25 picture. There is a world where you nosedive a little bit, just stay inside. But a win against Dakota Wesleyan, even a not so bad loss, give me 8 or less probably, because it is actually it's at Arizona Christian, so I think it's got to be even lower than that. Give me a 5-point loss. Now we're talking about, again, similar to LSU-A, a conversation of keeping them in at least one more week, and then we see what happens the following 2 weeks. But it's going to be tough. Dakota Wesleyan is not going to be an easy game for Arizona Christian to try and take. It would be an upset, obviously. I think Dakota Wesleyan, top 10 team in the country right now. So that's going to be a big one for Arizona Christian for sure. Getting bounced back, trying to get that one get back in the good graces of the committee, so to speak. But that's going to do it for this episode. I really appreciate you guys staying along, talking a little bit about hoops, listening to me talk a little bit about the hoops. Again, want to give a shout out to UHSP for a great tip-off classic. Definitely recommend all those coaches out there that are listening. Give it a look. Reach out to Coach Markel Cox. He put on a great event. He put on a great show. The team there, the facilities are amazing facility. I really got to say. So definitely, I think it's a great at least conversation to have. There are some good teams coming out next year, so you want to get in early, because if you don't, you might miss some really good resume building opportunities for sure. And then obviously appreciate you guys talking a little bit about the upsets and the Mid-South. Again, they are the best conference in the NAIA women's basketball world. I don't have a problem saying that on the air. But that'll do it for this episode. I will catch you guys next week. Again, coach's interview coming out on Thursday, so keep an eye out for that one. But we'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.